Australia, the sixth largest country on Earth. An ancient, rugged, and unforgiving land with abundant animal life, both beautiful and deadly. Found within its awe-inspiring landscapes and natural beauty exists a deep history of unexplained mysteries for anyone with the courage to investigate them. Tonight, we join Ben on a journey across this vast island continent in search of answers to events that have reshaped the lives of so many that have been exposed to Unexplained Phenomena Australia, with your host, Ben Hurl.
G'day everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unexplained Phenomena Australia. It's so good to be back this week, and since last week I was thinking, what are we going to look at on this week's show? And I thought there was an investigation that I did in about 2015, so quite a few years ago now, and it was looking at the very interesting case of Willow Grove. Now, Willow Grove is a small little farming area that's just east of Melbourne, and we'll have a look at some maps a little bit later. And on the 15th of February 1963, a farmer had a very unusual encounter, and it occurred at 7 a.m., which is sort of an interesting time as well. Like a lot of UFO encounters tend to occur. Well, they can occur any time, of course, but a lot of them tend to occur, more in the early hours of the morning or of the night time. And this was actually at 7 a.m. So it was a sort of a not usually a time where you see a lot of reports around that time of the day, and that he was actually in the process of milking a herd of cows. So that was actually what was happening, or they were in the process of getting the cows into the yard, pushing them through and getting them milked. And the witness who saw this strange object was Charles Brew, and his son Trevor Brew was actually in the milking shed, milking the cows, and Charles was basically herding them through. So this case is really interesting because the primary witness was very credible at the time in 1963, and it did receive an extraordinary amount of publicity at that time too. It ended up in the Herald Sun down in I think it was the Herald at that time down in Melbourne, and it got quite a lot of local publicity as well. It appeared in the local paper, and people were curious about this entire incident that had happened. So I thought, well, this case is worthy of having a look at all these years later. So I contacted Trevor Brew, who was the son, and Charles had since passed away. So by 2015, I had no chance of being able to talk to the original and primary witness. But I thought I'll try and track down Trevor, because Willow Grove is about 90 minutes to 2 hours from where I'm sitting right now, and I thought I could easily catch up with him if he was willing to do so. So I rang him on the phone, or found his phone number in the phone book, which was great because unless it wasn't Smith or Jones, one of those real common names, it was Brew's not uncommon, but I did find a T. Brew living in Warragul, which is a large town just to the southwest of where Willow Grove is. And so I rang him up just out of the blue, just phone call out of the blue, as these calls are. And I said to him, "Oh, Trevor, it's Ben Hurl here. Just wanted to touch base about a strange UFO encounter that you and your father had back in 1963. Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, we did. Oh, all those years ago. I said, yeah, look, I'm interested in having a chat to you about it. Maybe visit the location, maybe do an interview with you. And he says to me, "Oh, nah, not really that interested." And and my heart sort of sunk at that moment because that can happen. You know, you've got all these great plans, great ideas, things you want to do, and the primary witness is reluctant or says no. So I went to work on him, and I just worked on him, and I worked on him. I said, "Come on, Trevor, this is history that's being lost now. Your father's passed away. It was decades ago. People really are still interested in this topic after all this time. It's not regarded with the giggle factor as much as it was encouraged back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even into the 2000s. It's there's a greater awareness of the potential for the reality of the UFO phenomenon. So it'd just be great to capture your story, to capture what happened to the Brew family." And he sort of thinks about it and he goes, "Oh, yeah, okay. All right. I reckon I could do that for you." And I said, "Oh, brilliant. That's so good." And he said, "Yeah, something for the grandkids to have a look at." And I said, "Yeah, well, there you go. Exactly. So, let's arrange to make this happen." So I was able to meet up with him, and we actually went out to the property where this incident occurred. And that was very exciting. So today we're going to have, on tonight's episode, we're going to have a look at the Brew family Willow Grove encounter, and we'll look at it in a relative amount of detail, and then we're going to have a listen to the interview that I did with Trevor. Now, it's the only one in existence. There are no other interviews anywhere else, and that's why at the time I thought it was really important to get out there and make contact with him and get something down so that there's something recorded. So we did. And so I ended up doing about a 20-minute interview with him, which we'll have a listen to. So what happened? So at 7 a.m. on the 15th of February, 1963, Charles Brew had a classic encounter. And his 20-year-old son, Trevor, was at work in the milking sheds on their farm in the little hamlet of Willow Grove. So it was light, but rain clouds lay overhead, and the rain was coming down steadily that morning. Charles Brew was standing out in an open area with a full view of the eastern sky. And it was from that direction that he saw a strange object appear and descend very slowly down towards the milking shed. The object's approach was, as it approached, the cattle and a nearby horse all reacted violently. The two farm dogs, they disappeared, they fled. And once this report actually got out to the newspapers, the local newspapers reported that the cows even turned somersaults. But that was a suggestion that the Brews strongly denied. That didn't happen. That was just a bit of artistic license. And so the UFO descended to a height of about 30 meters, hovering over a stringy bark tree. And it was about 8 meters in diameter and 3 meters high. The top section appeared to be a transparent dome of a glass-like material, from which protruded a 2 meter high mast or an antenna on top of it. And the aerial appeared to be as thick as a broom and resembled bright chrome in colour, this tall antenna that was on top of it. The top portion of the disc was battleship grey in colour, your classic grey, and appeared to be of a metallic sort of appearance. The base or underside section glowed with a pale blue colour and had scoop-like protuberances around the outside edge underneath the bottom of it. And the bottom section rotated slowly at about 1 revolution per second. This spinning motion caused those protuberances on the underside to generate a swishing noise, somewhat like a turbine sort of a sound that was really clearly audible, not only to Charles Brew, but also his son Trevor, who was inside the shed near the operating diesel-powered milking machine. So even above the sound of the milking machine and the cows, Trevor could actually hear this noise, this strange noise outside. Meanwhile, the principal witness, Charles, felt his eyes were drawn towards the object as though beams of a magnetic current were between it and him. So that's kind of strange as well. And he also experienced a peculiar headache, which came on with the approach of the object. So this headache kind of started to form and grow with intensity inside his head. So after hovering for a few seconds, the object began to climb again, and it continued on its westward course and passed up into the cloud deck and headed out over the Bor mountain range. So, as I said, Trevor didn't see the UFO, but he did confirm that strange sound, and he described it as being like a didgeridoo or a bull roarer, which are Aboriginal sort of instruments which produce a pulsating, wind-rushing noise. So that's the basics of the encounter. That's it. That's the basics. And it was really just a short visit. This craft came down out of the cloud deck, came down slowly, hovered over a nearby tree, and I've been to this actual area, hovered over the nearby tree, and sat there with it rotating, and it had this physical impact on Charles, the principal witness, and then the cows also all surged forward. They surged into the dairy. So Trevor had this stampede of cows coming, rushing into the dairy area. So that's the report. It's relatively short. It wasn't there for long. But there was this massive outpour after this actual encounter. And the RAF, the Royal Australian Air Force, came and they actually interviewed the family. So Flight Lieutenant Hudson and Squadron Leader Joes of the RAF interviewed the Brews. And while they were impressed with his credibility, the weather at the time of the sighting, the heavy continuous rain with very low clouds and poor visibility and with a fresh wind coming from an easterly direction, led the RAF to focus on weather-related explanations. And their report described the basis of their somewhat extraordinary explanation of the incident. So on the 6th of March, Dr. Burson and Mr. Clark, who were Commonwealth meteorologists, were interviewed to see if clouds could give this type of phenomenon. And they agreed that a tornado condition could in fact give this effect. And the direction of Charles Brew's report of the object was consistent with known facts for the Southern Hemisphere. The bluish colouring had been reported previously, and it was probably due to electrical discharge, and it would be a smell of ozone. The only difference in the Brew's report was that the object moved from east to west, because all their previous reports of this nature have been from west to east. So the meteorological report stated that the wind was westerly at 8 knots. But the local weather report had come from an observer in Yallourn, which is 20 kilometres away. So the weather for the day is reported as being, that report's coming from not that location, it's 20 kilometres to the east. So the RAF concluded that there's little doubt that Brew did witness something, and it was most likely that it was a natural phenomenon. And the phenomenon was probably a tornado. There was no report of damage along its path. Therefore, one could assume that it was weak in nature. So this is back in that time when they were trying to literally explain everything away. Everything. Now, a farmer knows his local environment and he knows the weather particularly well. It's highly unlikely that what Charles Brew experienced was anything like that. So we'll have a bit of a listen to Trevor and see his whole take on the incident as it occurred. But before we do, I'll just show you a couple of other little quick things. Where are we? Come back up here. So this is where Willow Grove is. So Willow Grove is just to the east of Melbourne, and you can see where that red dropper is there, where it is. So it's in southeast Australia, in my state, Victoria. Now this brings it in a little bit closer. So where that little red circle is in that map there, and again you can see it's near the Yarra Ranges National Park. I always love it when UFOs are appearing near national parks. It's very, very common, which is just to the north of the Willow Grove area. And where I live is across to the eastern side there, where it says Bairnsdale Lakes Entrance. I live in that area there, so I'm only roughly 2 hours away from that Warragul area, and then Melbourne's off to the east, the big capital of our state. So that's that. So what we'll do is I shall just get the interview underway. G'day folks, today we're out here at Willow Grove and I would like to welcome Trevor Brew. Thanks for being with us, Trevor.
That's no worries at all, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. On the 15th of February 1963, in this beautiful location where we're standing, a most unusual event occurred for Trevor and his father, who were operating a dairy farm out here at the time. And we're standing here with Trevor in the actual location where an object appeared from the eastern sky, came down, hovered briefly over the hill just behind us here, and then it took off over to the hill over in this direction here. So it must have been the most unusual day.
It was, certainly, and the after effects were too, of all the publicity that followed, but
yeah,
unfortunately my dad saw it and I didn't.
And you didn't?
I heard it, but I didn't see it because I was in a built-up area of the shed sort of thing, and
yeah,
naturally we were not expecting anything like that to happen.
No. And what was the weather like on that day?
The weather was very rainy,
yeah,
not windy, but very heavy rain. Steady, not heavy, but very steady.
Yeah. And was the clouds quite low?
No, you didn't see clouds. It was just a lovely, lot of rain.
Just a lovely lot of rain coming down.
A lovely lot of steady rain,
yeah. And how far into the milking were you on that day?
Oh, probably about halfway through. Nearly halfway through,
yeah. And what happened when... So just explain to us what happened.
Well, it would have been about probably... I'd got the cows in and it would have been about 7:30 in the morning. And in those days, we didn't have electricity down here, so we had a Lister engine, which was the diesel run, and the milk machines were run by batteries. Pulley belts and things like that, not batteries.
Yeah.
And I was sitting up the blind end of the shed, doing what a man has to do, milking cows, and I was doing a heifer at the time, which, as anyone who's got that sort of experience will know, that they've got very smaller bags and very tight and small little teeth. So I was holding the cups on her so that they wouldn't drop off, because if you lose too much air pressure, they'll just drop off.
Yeah.
And she was new, so you had to sit there and hold them on for the first minute or two.
Yeah.
And then I heard this noise and I thought, oh no, not another bloody, excuse the expression, not another pulley belts come off the drive, the drive wheel. And then, of course, all the cows at the same time bolted forward and nearly went right through the shed.
Wow, so that would have been a shock.
Yeah, it was. And I thought, oh, what's going on here? And and you sort of heard the noise as it come down, like as if it was winding back at the end of its run.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it sort of hovered there, as Dad's explained,
yep,
for about 6 to 7 seconds, perhaps 8 or 9 seconds, something like that.
Yep.
And then it just took off in a northerly direction, and the power of it, just listening to it, was really phenomenal.
And
I don't know. I can't remember whether he explained it. That's what it was straight away, or whether he explained later on in the day. But all I wanted to do was finish the milk and get out of here.
Yeah.
But when I found out that that's what I'd missed out on,
Yeah,
I've been disappointed for the rest of my life.
absolutely.
That I didn't have enough sense to jump up and have a look.
To see it.
But I didn't expect to have a UFO, or call it what you like.
Hovering above the milk shed.
No, well, to me, they would have been just not going to happen,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been a believer.
No. And your father, he wouldn't have been a believer either?
No, he's not. He wasn't.
No. What sort of a man was your father?
Very quiet.
Very quiet?
And reserved.
Yeah.
And certainly not one to make up stories.
No.
Yeah.
No. And he experienced a
I guess
headache.
it got a bit too much for him, and he had to ring up the Herald Sun, which, as far as we was concerned, was the worst thing that ever happened, because we had so many visitors and that. Yeah, they said he had a bit of a headache. But that might have been just stressed out. I don't know.
Stressed out, yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Because you do get headaches when you get stressed out.
You do, yeah.
So whether that was...
Yeah.
I can't see how it would have given him a headache, but I don't know.
No. And so after it took off and it went away in that direction there, did he come and see you, or did you go and see him?
No, we just continued milking, and he didn't say anything. And I can't remember, because we used to drive from here back home to have brekkie.
Yeah.
And which was a couple of k's away.
Yeah.
And he didn't say anything about it. The next thing I knew was that he'd rang up the Herald Sun and...
Okay.
And,
so he didn't discuss it with you at the time?
No.
You just got stuck straight back into the milking?
Yeah.
Get the cows through?
Yeah.
And then after that,
gone
home.
Yeah.
And then he's rung the...
Well, yeah, that's the way I can remember it. I wouldn't say that he didn't discuss it, but I can't remember
that he actually...
That he did.
That he did discuss it.
And if he had, I probably would have thought he'd carrying on, But when it took off like it did, sort of left no doubts in my mind that it was something out of the usual, for sure.
So what did it sound like?
It sounded like an Aboriginal didgeridoo type noise.
Yep.
An air type, concussion type noise.
Concussion type of sound.
Yeah, that's how it took off. So whether it was powered that way or not, I don't know.
No.
But it certainly had a lot of power, and it was gone within about 4 or 5 seconds.
Okay. Yeah.
Disappeared. And of course, I didn't even get up to see what it was then.
No.
I didn't expect that's what it was.
Well, there's been no reason to.
No, of course not.
No. But would you have described it as being as loud as a low-flying helicopter? Louder?
No.
Not just a hum.
Not all that loud. Just
enough to get above the diesel engines for you to go.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's an unusual sound.
Yeah. But like the Black Hawks and the helicopters, they make a lot of noise.
They do. Yes.
And I wouldn't say that it was
as
loud as them.
As loud as
except when it took off, it was just phenomenal. It was a phenomenal noise when it took off.
Okay. So as you said, it did power down, and then it
hovered
powered
down,
on.
and then when it realised, what am I doing here? Or I've seen what I want to see, or whatever.
Yeah.
Off they went. Yeah.
Off they went. Yeah, no worries. And of course the stock went crazy.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean, they would have got a bird's eye view of it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And cattle are always anything like strange upsets them very.
Yeah, they spook easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
They would have forged forward 20 to 30 feet and then realised that they couldn't go no further. They were very frightened. Yeah.
They were very frightened. And the dogs went quiet. And
the dogs seemed to go quiet for a week or two. Yeah.
Yeah. Were there horses here?
There was a horse here. Yeah. She was tied up.
Was she?
In the yard.
Yep.
And I saw her rear up.
Yeah, so she reacted?
Yeah, she didn't have a saddle on. I had ridden her bareback to get the cows in the morning. Just the bridle.
Okay.
She's a good quiet horse, though. But she reared up and come back down again, but she didn't break the reins or anything like that. So
she didn't break the reins, yeah.
If it had been my other horse, she would have went through the fence, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the better horse was there that day, so she behaved herself pretty well.
Okay, and I've also read that the stock were a bit unusual in the time after that as well.
Yeah, well, it was it would have been when they were coming back past where it had been.
Yeah.
They were always sniffing and smelling and carrying on like they do.
Yeah.
Like if there's been a dead another dead cow or something like that, they'll carry on until the smell goes, and that's what they were like.
So they were like behaving like that.
Oh, they weren't silly.
Yeah.
But you had to drive them past.
Had to drive them past.
Keep them moving.
Yeah, because the object was just over this hill here where we're standing.
Yeah,
so getting them to go past that area
was always a bit slower.
Yeah. They were. Do you think they were maybe remembering it? Who knows?
They would do.
Yeah.
Animals are not silly.
Yeah. So they would have remembered
what happened. Yeah.
That was the case. Now, soon after the events, there was some official interest.
Oh yes, there was.
Can you remember who came here?
Well, there would have been representatives of the Herald Sun and perhaps some other papers. There was also someone came out from England.
Yeah.
I don't know who he was or who he represented, but he had come out from England. Whether he was already out here or not, I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, there was a lot of UFO people around, naturally.
They did come out.
Oh, yes.
Because I did read that the CSIRO came here.
Oh, they probably did, yeah.
Yeah, and the RAF came, of course, as well, and they did a bit of an investigation at the time.
Yeah. And all throughout all the publicity that Mum and Dad got and the letters that we got, there was only one cranky letter.
Okay.
And we reckon we worked out who that was. It was from people we knew.
Oh.
And it said, how big was it? Was it as big as an orange?
Yeah.
So obviously they didn't believe a word.
They didn't believe the story.
They wouldn't have believed the story.
And how about over the years?
Most people are very creditable in listening to it.
And listening to
I
it.
I never go and tell people what happened. If someone approaches me,
then
I'll say, But most people, especially the last half dozen years or so, or 10 or 12 years, are beginning to accept the fact that perhaps there is extra life out there.
Out there, yes, yeah. And on that particular day, they may have come in for a look at the brew farm.
Well, it wasn't the brew farm; it was Kilpatrick farm.
Kilpatrick farm.
But I don't know whether they came down by mistake or whether they were just having a look around. To me, as far as I would imagine, they'd be just having a look around. I don't believe that they'd lost their way or anything like that.
No.
They're too good to be losing their way.
It was pretty precise in what it did too.
Yeah,
wasn't
came down, had a bit of a look, hovered for a while, and then took off. So
basically, it had a look, and then it went off over that direction there.
That's right, over the sort of northeast. Is it northeast?
Northwest in that direction.
Northwest, right.
So your father, over the years, did he have much to say about it after that, or did it play in his mind at all?
No. He wasn't a publicity person.
Yeah.
He told what he knew, and Mum and Dad went to a few UFO meetings.
They did,
yes. Yep. But I think they got a little bit sick of them after a while.
Fair enough too.
Because there was a fair bit of religion in it, apparently.
Yeah, that aspect.
So they sort of decided that they weren't going to go anymore. They would have went to half a dozen meetings. And they were invited to go, of course.
Yeah.
And,
did you or your father see anything else at all over the years, or that was basically the main, which was a pretty good.
That's it.
Main event.
There's nothing else.
There's nothing else occurred.
No other stories.
No other stories. Have you heard of any other stories around this area?
Oh yes.
There have been other stories in the area.
Yes.
That is always very interesting.
Yes, it apparently had been seen. By someone else on that day.
Someone else on the day.
Yes.
Was it another farmer around here?
It was a local identity, apparently.
Yeah.
And I know his surname, but I wouldn't.
No, that's fine. You don't have to say it.
And he may not be around anymore anyway.
Okay.
So, it was either seen that day or in that week, or probably would have been the same day.
Okay. And would he have been at Willow Grove, or would he have been Hill End, or...?
It would have been Willow Grove area.
Willow Grove area?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was another sighting. You don't know what time of day or anything like that at all?
No, I don't know. I can't remember.
Well, that's very interesting, because I never knew that there was any supporting
people. He wouldn't have
come forward with it.
No.
Oh, that's fully understandable too.
Yeah.
So that's quite reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, that's apparently it was seen on that particular day by someone else.
By someone else as well.
But he's kept quiet about it. So whether he was smart or not, I don't know. In those days, you would have seen, especially, I believe that if it was seen again today, anyone would say, yes, we definitely saw it,
Definitely.
The trouble is, it was only seen by one person, which,
That is a problem. Yeah, it limits I suppose the impact of the experience.
That's right.
But you said your father was a very level-headed man.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't have been. There's no known way he would have been making up a story.
No.
And he wasn't, because I can back it up. I heard it and I know what happened.
Yeah. No
It
worries.
certainly wasn't what do they call them? The wind.
Yeah.
What do they call those things?
It was no helicopter, gyrocopter,
No.
aeroplane.
No.
The explanation was that it was a tornado.
Oh no.
A weather event.
Well, didn't knock any buildings down or not trees, or we're all still standing. It wasn't a tornado either, no. And it wasn't a wind thing either. But those things that they put up there, CSIRO or whatever those, weather
balloons.
Yeah, no, it wasn't one of them.
Yeah, so it wasn't a weather balloon. It wasn't a plane.
No, it was something that.
It was something unusual.
It was something that
shouldn't have been there.
Shouldn't have been there. Yeah.
Absolutely shouldn't have been there. So. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Trevor. It's really good, and we'll have a bit more of a walk around, and we'll shoot some more footage for you of the actual location, so you'll get a good look at it. And Trevor might give us a bit of a walk through on some of the other aspects of the day.
Yeah, we might think of some more to add to it.
Yeah,
I've probably got some more in the back of my mind, but it has been 52 years.
No worries. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah,
that wasn't down there. It was here.
So in here,
that's all gone.
Okay. So in here, this area here, there were large rocks, and they've come and they've extracted those rocks.
Well, whether someone took them for garden beds or whatever, I don't know.
It could have been, yeah.
Whether it was taken for another reason, I don't know.
There's another possibility as well.
They were here when we left the farm.
They were. Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting to know that was. And you said there was a meteorite that was extracted from here, not necessarily around the event.
We don't know whether it had anything to do with the unidentified object or not.
No.
And we don't for sure know whether it was a meteorite or not, but someone said that it was.
It was a meteorite, yeah.
And it had landed in there.
Yeah.
But whether that's feasible or not, I don't know. Whether that was actually a meteorite or not, I don't know.
No, okay. Well, that's interesting. So
it is, but I don't believe that it had anything to do with the UFO.
With the UFO itself.
I don't believe it.
Just another
coincidence.
Coincidence. So in this area here where we're standing, people, right here up to a maximum height of about 30 feet, this is where the object was hovering for some up to 10 seconds that Charles saw, and then it disappeared out over the mountain, which is just off here that we're panning around to now, and then it was gone. And Trevor didn't have the opportunity to see it because it was here and it disappeared in next to no time at all.
Trevor didn't realise what it was.
And Trevor didn't realise what it was as well. So, yeah. So, yeah, very interesting.
Trevor was only a young 20-year-old and did not expect to see UFOs.
No.
Rightio. So I hope you enjoyed that interview that I did with Trevor Brew at the location, and those pictures that I were circulating through the audio, they were actually at the location where both Trevor and I was standing. So basically, when you look at this picture here, the UFO was back up over above Trevor's head on the right-hand side there. And this picture here is just right out across that whole beautiful area, which leads off towards the Baw Baw Mountains. So it's in a very rolling hill, lush sort of dairy area, very common for UFOs to appear around dairy farms. So I've got another little treat for you now too. I'm going to play a snippet of an interview that Charles Brew did many years ago. So Charles being the primary witness, he was interviewed by a gentleman called Kevin Arnett, who used to work for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and he did a brief interview with Charles at the location. So I'm just going to play a snippet of that for you too, so you can hear Charles's version of events. I'll just press play.
That's about the size of it. It's about 25, 30 feet across, and as near as I could work out, about 9 feet, in depth.
It was raining hard at 7:30 that morning when Charles Brew was milking his cows. What was about to happen was to put Willow Grove in Victoria's Gippsland on the map, and to put the date April 28, 1963, firmly in Charles Brew's mind for the rest of his life.
We were halfway through the milking, and the cows were very disturbed, and the pony broke away from over there. That's probably what drew my attention to it first. Trevor sang out, "What the hell's that?" And I looked over there, and I seen what this object, which I took to be a flying saucer. And we went on looking for a while, and then Trevor went on looking. I walked up there to the doorway. I was going to head across towards and get a closer up look. And this thing was hovering there, raining very heavy at the time. I said, well, I'll see if I can nip over a bit closer.
Did the UFO make any movement at all?
Oh, it dipped slightly, Kevin, just before it took off, towards me. And then I got this thundering great headache. I just like somebody walloped me with an iron bar. And I got this headache which lasted, I suppose, for the best part of a week before it finally went away. And then levelled up a little and then took off.
What about the meteorite? This is another important thing. There was a meteorite just afterwards.
Yes. Well,
and the meteorite was in this area.
Yes, that's where right there at that spot.
Just where we're standing now.
Yes, well, I didn't look for it for about 2 days afterwards, I suppose. And I got a matic or a pick. I think it was a pick. And I dug it up there. And I took the pick through it. That was, I suppose, a little bit bigger than Australian rules football. And hollow inside. Stone colour, normal stone colours on the outside, moss on top. And as I said, on the inside was jet black.
It's thought by some that meteorites may attract UFOs. And if this is so, perhaps the coincidence of this sighting is not as extraordinary as some may believe.
Do you think people would regard you as a crank? Oh, yes. I thought one of my mates in Warrigal Centre, I said Ron Dent, and I reckon Ron was off his rocker too. But anyhow, he said, one of these days, you never know, you might see something yourself and it'll change your mind. That was years ago, years before. Anyhow, you can only report what you see and try and work it out from there.
So there you go. That's in the words of the man himself, Charles Brew. And he mentioned a friend, Ron Dent, and I actually knew Ron Dent when I was about 20 years old. I worked for his son. So small connections like that are really quite intriguing. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation and the intrigue of the Willow Grove encounter. And to round out this week's episode, I'm going to share with you a rare interview that Kelly Cahill did. And Kelly had the unusual encounter in Narre Warren in August 1993 when herself, her husband, and 3 other cars saw that incredible football field UFO that appeared out over the field, and then these beings with red eyes charged across the paddock. Very, very famous case. And this is an interview that she did at a conference in 1997 in Melbourne. So it hasn't been seen very much, and it was done on a program called Top Secret TV with David Becker, which ran for a season or 2 on public air television. And in this one, she sort of talks about a lot of different things. So it's sort of a bit more of a sort of an access to Kelly and her thoughts. And I thought that maybe it might be interesting to have a bit of a look at that. So I'll play that now.
I'm speaking here with Kelly Cahill. She is one of a rare breed of Australians who's had a multiple witness encounter, a UFO experience of the first kind, I guess it would be. And that involves physical ground traces and actual marks on people's bodies, as well as contact with the beings themselves. So, welcome, Kelly.
Hi, David.
How are you?
Not bad.
That's good. Now, I'd like to actually start off firstly by, I think your case is very interesting in the way that it's been portrayed in the media. You've had quite a lot of media attention. Can you take us through some of the good and bad experiences or some of the issues that have raised to do with media?
Yeah, I guess I could. Actually, the only reason that I went public in the first place is thanks to another experiencer in Sydney. He had been doing a little bit of public work himself, and he said, look, there's so many of us, and you know how many there is, but no one's game to come forward simply because they've got no evidence, and here you are sitting there with all of this physical evidence, with other witnesses, something no one else has, and you're staying quiet. So basically, that was the first thing I did. It was a conference, and it went on from there. I found that I haven't had too much flack compared to what a lot of other people might have had. I've had one or two incidences where the presenter hasn't been very keen on the subject at all. But usually that's more to do with a bigoted opinion of whether UFOs exist or not. And when it comes down to the actual evidence available for the existence of UFOs, it's quite easy to stump people in the end. So, no, it's been pretty good, but it's been very, very hectic. I think that I found that once it started, it just didn't seem to stop. So it wasn't a case of doing one thing, but one followed by a million things.
Yeah, but you've had pretty positive experience with the media in Australia.
Yeah, most of it has been. As I said, occasionally. I mean, I have this problem of the skeptics following me around. A particular Victorian skeptic is my problem at the moment, and he keeps jumping on the bandwagon with any of my media. And I mean, he's done some wonderful things. He said, called me a disorganised, neurotic woman because I took my handbag with me to the encounter. Mind you, they can't dump on the case; they can only dump on the person.
Yeah.
And I don't even know this guy. He's been telling the media all about me, sort of. So I'm picking up the interviews I've done, and all of a sudden, this guy's name's popped up again, and he's had his little say about me. And it'd be nice to meet him one day, but I've been told there's a lot of media that goes on without me now. It's sort of like quite often I get told, oh, you're in the paper today, or they were talking about you on TV the other day, and they're the ones I have no control over. And
how do you feel about that, the fact that you've almost turned into an icon for the UFO scene in Australia, or particularly abductees in Australia?
Well,
you're almost like, an icon. I wouldn't say ambassador, but an icon.
Well, I don't know.
Do you think you get targeted both for positive and bad publicity because you are such a high profile?
Yeah, well, I guess so. I mean, the last creation that I heard about, Bill Chalker told me that they'd put on a television show in Sydney where the skeptics were sitting there saying that I'd given birth to an alien hybrid baby. And I'm not sure whether it was national television or not, but, I start thinking, the stories are going to start getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm not there to defend myself. But in a lot of ways, I think it's encouraged a lot more people to come forward about their experiences. I mean, that's what I guess the whole main thing is about, is that, I can't really, well, the case itself can't really be crucified. And a lot of serious people, a lot of academics, a lot of scientists, a lot of interested parties are actually starting to pay serious attention to it. And, whereas any person like that had underground involvement in the UFO field before, they're starting to come out about it too. And a lot of people are starting to feel like, hey, there are people here, I can come and tell somebody now, or I found out that there's experienced support groups and I can go and meet other people like me. And I think a lot of people are coming out of the closet, and which is really, it's building public acceptability up as well. So people are starting to realise, hey, there is something going on here. And maybe eventually, the people like governments who give grants for who give grants for research in every other field might decide to turn around and say, oh, well, there's so many people calling out for belief here, maybe we ought to do something about UFO research too, and actually fund something that might produce some results. So, I think it can only be beneficial in the end.
With the government research, to what degree, obviously you would have heard of all the conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah. There's some good ones.
Yeah. What's your general feeling on the UFO cover-up?
I don't know. I'm not personally. I'm not much into the idea that the government's hand in hand with aliens. I don't like that at all. I do believe that there is covert military activity going on, but I think even on the same level, trying to find out more of what's going on. But I don't believe that, say, it's just your usual defence force. I mean, they opened up their archives ages ago and gave them to the researchers, and they tell everyone else to go to the researchers. But there are interested, there are sort of little task forces and things that I'm pretty well certain exist, even in Australia, and they're more or less interested in, how can I say it, in gathering information.
Right.
So I don't really think that they've got answers, but I think that they want answers just as much as anyone else, But I don't know. As for the American scene, if anything happens, it happens in America, doesn't it? So I really don't know. I would say that obviously there's something going on over there. There's just too many secret documents, too many top secret documents that aren't allowed to be released from the States on the UFO topic.
Yeah.
And if they don't exist, well, why not release the whole goddamn lot? And it doesn't seem to happen. So, but as for the big conspiracies and sort of underground bases and aliens and humans sharing their technology together and allowing people to be abducted and all that sort of stuff, I sort of try and, keep my feet on the ground a bit more than that. I mean, if they prove me wrong one day, well, I'll stand there and say, my God, I was wrong. But in the meantime, I'm not so sure about that side of things.
All right, well, moving on to some of the associated phenomena like crop circles and mutilations. Now that sort of thing is seems to be on the increase. Do you think that there's any link between UFOs and crop circles or UFOs and cattle mutilations?
Well, it's really funny. I don't know if you saw that video recently that came out of the little light going around creating a crop circle.
Yes, I did.
That was proved to be a fake.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that we've got some friends in Holland who've researched crop circles, and some other people, and quite often in filming crop circles that are already there, a little light will be seen spinning around the crop circle, not actually creating it, but they are seen. And I'm more inclined, I don't know, see, there's a lot of light phenomena seen in relationship to crop circles, but not necessarily UFO phenomena. I don't know if it's some sort of natural light phenomena or some sort of magnetic light phenomena from the Earth.
Yeah.
But I don't see it. I see it only linked with lights. Especially over in England, there's sort of, it's not, dirty big triangular shaped UFOs or big round silver spherical things that seem to be connected to it. It's light forms, and so I don't know. Maybe there is a connection, or maybe it's just a different type of phenomena. Definitely, I guess it definitely goes over the boundaries of your usual physical phenomena, just like the UFOs do. But whether there's a link or not, I don't know. Cattle mutilations. I got a good theory on this one. So I don't know anything. I don't know enough, But it's only a recent one that I came up with.
Yeah.
What I thought is, I noticed that when they were doing when they released the information on the cloning that they'd done with the sheep, I noticed that they'd taken it from the mammary gland, and then they'd actually had attempts at other soft tissue areas. And then I looked at cattle mutilations, and I thought, these are the parts that go. It's the lips, udders. It's the udders, it's the vaginal areas or the anal areas, and they're all the soft tissue areas of the body. And I thought, we could have some sort of secret cloning going on here that we're not supposed to know about. And isn't there a perfect cover up with an alien situation?
Okay.
I mean, this is just
so soft tissues are where genetic materials.
But the way I look at it, if they're presenting as a sheep that they've already cloned, well, I mean, we've known about there's been knowledge about this. The stealth, like the stealth in the 70s, that wasn't, and the Aurora, and basically when that was talked about, that was a whole heap of rubbish, and it was a big conspiracy idea, and it was a load of garbage. But eventually they let us know, which means that they've got something bigger and better. And I think it's the same with the cloning. They wouldn't have let us know that they've gone this far if that's all they've gone, you know. And I think it's much further advanced. And I think,
so what you're suggesting is that 10 to 15-year time lag between the military and trickle-down effect of technology to society.
Well, that's
if we're getting clone sheep now,
to hear about.
So if we've got clone sheep now, whatever they've got is 10 to 15 years ahead
exactly.
of us.
But I don't know. I just thought this. I'm probably wrong, but I thought that cattle mutilation's linked with this. Oh well, God knows. You never know. Look, aliens might be cloning. But you know, I just thought it was a good link.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Just to finish off with, or as the last couple of questions, the spiritual evolution angle. Do you think that the UFO experiences that not only yourself but other people are having are in some way linked to our evolution, whether that be a physical evolution or a spiritual evolution?
Well, there's definitely a lot of changes in a human being. Mentally, I even think you could go as far as saying this is whether it is because of the experience or it was created during the experience or has come about as an after effect, or you know, of the experience. There seems to be an expansion in mind capability towards a lot more, I guess, a lot more metaphysical things,
right?
And a lot more psychical things. And I've been through all of these myself, but you know, I look at it from two angles. You learn to adapt to those sort of things, and it sort of becomes like eating, breathing, or any other part of you. Or you know, you go the other way, you end up an absolute Fruit Loop, or you know, someone that no one else can understand because they've gone so hooty guru that you know what I mean. It's unbelievable. Or you can accept that this is, you know, these facilities have become available to you, and you can exercise them, but at the same time keep your logic and your feet on the ground. Then you've got more of a chance of sort of being analytical about it and actually learning how to develop it and how to use it. And I do think that is very prominent with people who've had UFO encounters and experiences. And most people that I've met that I know for certain are bona fide experiences have had an incredible change psychically and
a heightening of
definitely.
Right. Oh, that's very interesting. Now, just to sort of close off, you're doing a few pretty interesting things with regards to the media. I understand you've got a doco coming up on Channel 7.
That's right. I'm one of a number of people actually on that documentary. It's about it's basically covering abduction cases in Australia.
Great, that's really good.
And
And what about? We've also got this book. So if anyone's actually interested in reading Kelly's story, pretty amazing story. Just sort of get hold of this book. This is available just bookstores, the usual places.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, it came out in September last year. There should still be a few around somewhere. But no, they should still be able to find it in Kmart or Target or somewhere like that, or in some bookshops and newsagents. You've probably got more of a chance in somewhere like Angus and Robertson or something like that. Then,
Okay. And of course, you're actually in negotiations for a movie.
I guess so. They're actually negotiating with. This is actually for the book, to make a movie out of the book,
right?
Which includes a bit more than the experience. It includes my personal life. So,
is this going to be a little bit like Fire in the Sky or something like that? A sort of
but they want to make it almost like a biography of a life. So they want to carry it on further to the work I'm doing with Exposure Magazine now and everything else. You know, how everything's followed tracks and how it's had an effect on the entire life scheme of a suburban Melbourne housewife. And they're negotiating with a few networks at the moment for a telly movie. And I'm just sort of sitting back waiting. I think there's 3 potential groups of backers that they're doing deals with at the moment. So
all right, well, that's all we have time for. Thanks very much for popping along. And I'm sure we'll catch up with you sometime in the near future.
Okay.
So there you go. That was Kelly at Contact 1997. And it's interesting to note that what they were talking about back then is still just as relevant today. So, you know, listening to what David was going through with her in that, it's all still very, very current all these years later, moving on. And the TV show that she was referring to is actually called Oz Encounters, and that's a really good Australian documentary, perhaps the last really good documentary that was ever made, and that was made around that time in the mid to late 1990s, Oz Encounters, and it's on YouTube. You can certainly check it out, and Kelly does appear in that. And she also appeared in The Extraordinary, which was another TV show that was on Australia during that period of time that focused on paranormal events in Australia. And that movie never eventuated that she's talking about at the end. So that was a bit of a shame that didn't come to fruition. But that's a little snapshot of Kelly in 1997, what was going on for her and the UFO whole phenomenon at that time. And plus we had I hope you enjoyed the Charles and Trevor Brew story as well. So I look forward to seeing you again next week when we shall continue. I had another one which was a UFO case in Orange, but we've just run out of time for that today. And I'll be sure to cover that again next week. So thank you for joining me very much, and I look forward to seeing you then. Have an absolutely great night.